Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video we are going to see introduction to hooks in reactjs. So if you are new here, please consider subscribing so you won't miss any future content. Now let's start the video. Yes, so let us understand what are hooks in reactjs. Basically before we start like what are hooks, let's understand why exactly we need to use hooks. Okay. So basically like we have in reactjs two types of component. One is class component and one is functional component. And we have other names as well for these two things is stateless as a functional component, we can call it as stateless component, and class component as a stateful component. Okay, so what is mean by this? Okay, so as we know that we have state and the life cycle methods in the class component inbuilt, but in functional component we don't have any such things. Okay, we have just normal function which we are which is returning HTML. That's it. Okay, there is no state, there is no life cycle method in functional component. That's the reason we call it as functional component as stateless component. Okay, but in the other hand, class component have states as well as the life cycle method. That's why it call it as a stateful component. Okay, so this is the reason. Now we are going to see why. Like this is the reason why we are going to use hooks. Okay, inside the functional component, not in the class component. So hooks are similar to the state and the what do we say life cycle component as we have in the class component. Same thing we have in the hooks, that functions, or I can say hooks are functions which are similar to state and the life cycle methods which we can use inside the functional components. So that's the reason we have to use hooks in the functional component. Okay. Yes. So what is hooks actually? Hooks are basically functions which will perform certain operations which we define. Okay. And it will act as a state or the lifecycle method. It's a similar thing. Okay. So in React.js, we use hooks inside the functional component only. Okay. And let's see what are all we have, like what are the hooks we have in the React.js. Okay. The first one we have common one which everyone uses is use state. Okay, so use state is something called as like a variable how we create, right? So it is similar to that. Okay, use state. And the other one is use effect. Okay, use effect is similar to component did mount. Okay, how we have in the class component, same way we will have it here. Okay, and the third one we have is use ref. Okay, use ref, we like these are the advanced hooks which we are going to have other videos, but I'm just listing down here. Okay, so use ref, and then we have use memo, then we have use context, after that we have use callback. Okay, so these are all hooks we have, and there are many more once you start using the other packages or libraries as well. So they also provide their custom hooks. Okay, so that also will be there. So these are all hooks we have in the React.js, and today we are going to see how we can use state. Okay. Yes. So let's understand about use state, how we can use it and why we need to use it. Okay. So as you can see on my screen, this is a project which we have created few videos back, and let's run this application. Okay. And you see, I'm using shortcut Control J to bring this terminal here. So let's run. We know the command npm run start will run our application, our React application. Okay. So till the time it is running, let's go ahead and let's create a component. Okay. So you can see we have this components folder. Inside that, I'll create one folder, name it as hooks. Okay, and enter. And inside that, I'll create one hook for our use state. Okay, but I'll not going to write use state like this. Okay, because it will overwrite the actual things. That is a different concept. We should not use the keywords which are used inside the React.js. Okay, keywords such as use state or class or these kind of thing. Okay, so let's say state.js. Okay, I'll say, and here let's import React.js from React library. And as we know that we need to use functional components, so I'll write function. State is our component name, and it is returning a div. Okay, let's say here use state, I'll say. Okay, And yeah, and now as we have created this component, we have to export it in the bottom, export, and I will going to export it default. Okay, and then we have to go to our main file, which is app.js, and we have to import it. Okay, I'll just comment on this example component, and let's have state. Okay, so as you can see, it is coming from component hooks state. Let's take it this way, and let's okay. So now we have imported successfully. Let's close the app.js, and let's go to the here. Okay, now you can see we are able to see the h1 heading. It is coming up here. Okay, use state. So now let's see why we need to use state first. Okay, use state first. Okay, then we are going to go into the concept of how we can use state. Okay, and yeah, so let's see, let's take an example. Okay, let me have let variable and count, okay, as 0. Okay, and this count, we need, let's create a counter. Okay, basically here I'll create a paragraph. I'll say count, and we know that how we can use variables inside our HTML. We can use curly braces and write inside count. Okay, and the count will be shown here. Okay, you see 0. Now let's create a button which will increase the count of this. Okay, so let's create a button here, and I'll say click, and we have to create one function inside this to increase the count. Okay, so I'll say increase. Okay, increase is our function, and here I'll say count equal to count plus 1. Okay, and this I'll going to call whenever the button click is happening. Okay, on click event we can use here, on click, and inside that I can provide this method. Okay, so see, there are two ways to provide your method, or you call your method inside the on click event. Okay, or any click events. Okay, so suppose if your method or function is not accepting any parameter, you can directly provide like this. Okay, but if there is parameters which is required, that time you can call it, but it will not going to work because you have to use callback at the start. Okay, like this. Okay, so these both methods will work however you want. Okay, but if you but consider when you have any like parameters to pass to the method, use it this way, or else just directly provide the name of the function here. Okay, it will take care there. Okay, you don't need to call here. Okay, you just need to provide the name, and it will automatically call your function. Okay, so now you can see we have did this, and let's console it inside that, so we can see if the count is increased or not. Okay, inside the function I am doing. Okay, this is a small increment function we have did. So let's go back to the server or the file, and let's see. Let me open the console as well, so we can see here if the count is increasing or not. Okay, so let me click here. Now you see here the count is still 0, and here you see count is 1. Okay, means the count is increased. Okay, the function is working, the count was increased, but value is not rendered here. Okay, value should be rendered here because we have to basically it should show us here, right? Like 1 2 3 like this. Now you see counter, if I click here, I can see that counter is increasing, but it is not showing here. Okay, the reason being is re-rendering of the component. Okay, so in the react.js what will happen is, if any value has changed here, the component, this component should mount again. Okay, because we are changing the value. As you remember from the last video, we have discussed lifecycle methods, these methods. Okay, and you can see here we have this state, props, and force update. So whenever the state is changing or updating, the component should be rendered again inside the DOM. Okay, the component should render again inside the DOM. This is called as re-rendering of the component. Okay, whenever the updating happening, the component should re-render. Okay, then only we should be able to see our value here. But as we are using plain JavaScript variables, it will not going to happen in this case. Okay, plain JavaScript will not going to affect the component to re-render it. Okay, because we can see in the lifecycle methods, I know this is the class component, but still the terminology and the methods and all will be same. Okay, mounting will be there in the class, like in the functional component as well, and updating also there. So right now we are updating it, but it is not updating our DOM. Okay, it should re-render. Okay, but with the help of JavaScript variables, it doesn't. It is not possible. Okay, So this is the reason we have to use hooks. Okay, hooks, what hooks will do is it will re-render our component such that we can see our values or the like this increment or the any values in the inside the HTML. Okay, basically we have to re-render our component. Okay, that's the reason we have to use hooks. Okay, and the first hook we have talked about is useState. Okay, what useState will do it is similar as variable, which will have one like same thing. You have initial value, you have variable identifier, and you have to show it here. Okay, and using a method, okay, there will be a method which will going to update the value. Okay, that we can see it right now. Okay, so what I'll do is here I'll just comment on this code, and yeah, let it be like this. And now let's import the use state first. Okay, to import use state, what we have to do is, as we have in this react, right, just put a comma and curly braces. Okay, and inside that do use state. Okay, so this is how you can import it, and let's initialize it. Okay, so then you can use constant, okay, and brackets equals to use state. Okay, this way. Okay, and here in this brackets we have to write two things. Okay, first is variable name, I'll say count. Okay, comma, and then set count. Okay, so what is set count will do here, I'll explain in a bit, but this is how we have to initialize it. Okay, and here it doesn't matter you use let or counts, because in JavaScript the let and counts is different, right? Like counts you can't change the value, but in this case it's just for initializing purpose. Okay, not for defining what variable it is. Okay, and after that inside this you have to write initial value. Okay, I'll say initial value as 0. Okay, so this is how you can create your state. And if I go back, I'll just comment on this button. If I go back, I should be able to see 0 here. You can see we are able to see 0. Now you see we are able to create a state, and we are able to use the state variable as well. Okay, now let's see what is set count here. Okay, set count is a function which will help use state to update the variable. Okay, update the variable as we are doing here, like in JavaScript. How we'll do count equal to some value. Okay, but in this case we can't do it. Okay, that's why we have a function which will going to update the value of this state. Okay, basically we call it as state, and this is the set state, we can say. Okay, so whenever set state happen, if we see in the lifecycle methods as well, here is the set state. Okay, so if the set state is triggered, it means we are in updating state. Because we are in updating state, it will going to re-render the component. Okay, so that's the same way will happen here. Okay, let's see how we can work with this. Okay, so I'll create one more function with the same name, increase. Okay, and let's see how we can update the value. Okay, and then I'll do set count. Okay, inside that I'll say count plus 1. Okay, so count is coming here. Okay, and set count will going to have the latest value which will going to update it. Okay, and let's enable this button and we can see it here. Okay, so this is a simple thing. Okay, what we are doing, set count we are doing, and we are increasing the count by plus 1. Okay, whatever count we have previous count plus 1. Okay, that we are doing it here. Same way we have done in the earlier one, which is like count equal to count plus 1, but here we are doing count plus 1 inside this, and this set count will going to update the value of count. Okay, so this is how the use state works. Okay, let's see inside the browser how exactly it will working. Okay, let me refresh once and let's click on click button. Okay, now you see we are able to see count is increasing. Okay, so it means component is able to re-render. Okay, set state is able to re-render the component such that we can see this count value inside our HTML code. Okay, so this is how use state works. Okay, yes. Last thing in the use state is, as you saw here, like we have initial value. Okay, so initial value is similar how we start like our variable in JavaScript. Okay, initial value can be anything. Okay, if I mean anything, it can be string. Okay, it can be null, it can be array, it can be object as well. Okay, it doesn't matter, it's up to you what you want to do, but it is good practice to have a initial value every time whenever you have use state. Okay, and in the set count I have written here. Okay, So this name can be anything. It's up to you what you want to write. Okay, why we use like set count? Okay, this way. So suppose if I have a name, okay, so I'll create one more state, and you can create multiple, like how many states you want, you can create in a single component. There is no limit. Okay, but you have to see the performance. Okay, the more states you use, the more performance it will take. Okay, so let's create one more use state for name. Okay, I'll say first it will be empty. Okay, and here I'll say name, comma, and I can write update name as well. Okay, so this is also work, but the standard way most people or everyone basically follow is set. They will write set, and they will write this state name here. Okay, so it will be very useful when you have like so much code and you want to update something. Okay, you will have thought that if I want to update the name, I'll just need to write set name. Okay, so this is the terminology here. Okay, so that's why we follow this way. But if you compare with the class component, there we have only set state. That's the only function we have. But here you are able to create each function for each state. Okay, for this, if you want to update this name state, you need to call as set name function only. Okay, if you want to update the count, you need to call set count only. So this is the thing we have in the use state. Okay, so this is about the introduction of hooks. We saw like what are hooks and why we need to use hooks, and also we saw like what is stateless and stateful component. What is the difference between both of them? And also we saw how we can use state in our React component. Okay. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing and give it a like. I'll be back with more content in the next video. Thank you.